Mainstream archaeologists have long rejected the notion that extraterrestrial beings had a hand in creating the pyramids of Egypt. Theologians and religious scholars refute the idea that stories of the Bible or the Mahabharata could be describing alien encounters. And governments throughout history have officially denied reports that the Earth has been visited by flying saucers. But on July 8, 1947, a UFO sighting was reported that even the United States government had trouble denying. Why? Because this time, the report was issued by the U.S. Army.
I'm walking on the Foster Ranch between Corona and Roswell, New Mexico, not far from what is called the debris field right over that hill. And that debris field refers to headlines back in July of 1947 about a disc, one of those mysterious UFOs, actually crashing right out here.
One night in early July 1947, a major thunderstorm rolled across New Mexico. The next morning, rancher Mac Brazel went out to check on the damage.
Mac Brazel went out to make sure everything was where it was supposed to be, and he came across this really extensive area of debris, stuff he had never seen before. He brought it to the local sheriff's office. In 1947, Roswell was home to Roswell Army Airfield. The sheriff called the base sent Major Jess Marcel, and at that point it basically became a military site as they gathered up every bit of debris they could find.
In their initial report, Army officials made a vague claim of having started the recovery of the debris sometime last week. But why didn't the Army report their findings right away? And why were they so ambiguous about the timeline?
One of the biggest things we have is the newspaper of July 8th, 1947, where Colonel Blanchard issued an order to Lieutenant Walter Haut, who was the public information officer, saying basically we have in our possession a flying saucer. It's being taken to Fort Worth, to higher headquarters.
Roswell was a real turning point for ufology. I think that was because the military for the first time admitted that they had a crashed disc. And because it was admitted at the time, of course, it caused a sensation.
Then July 9th, General Ramey issued a press release saying, no, it was a weather balloon. And that started the best documented UFO cover-up ever.
Army officials referred to the debris as being part of a flying disc. Internal memos even referenced the crash site as having victims. So why, less than 24 hours later, did they suddenly decide that what they had retrieved was nothing more than a weather balloon? Although Blanchard and Ramey stuck by the revised story, Lieutenant Haut stood by the contents of his initial report his entire life. And those who believe him think modern technology may have recently provided the irrefutable evidence they have been looking for.
When Major Marcel took the debris to Fort Worth and General Ramey spread it out to give this press conference that it was a weather balloon, there was a picture taken, and in his hand is a piece of paper. And it's a very little piece of paper, and this has been blown up, and it is a memo. There is a leading researcher in the field who is pulling the words out of this. And they include things like team at Fort Worth, forwarded victims of the wreck, pod or pan. And so every year that the technology improves, General Ramey may be the one to solve it.
Bob Wood, a researcher in UFOs, had received leaked documents in 1996 and shared them with me and a few others. This document, called the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, with a War Department stamp dated July 22nd, 1947. The most disturbing aspect of this investigation was that there were other bodies found not far from Landing Zone 1 the Mac Brazel site between Corona and Roswell, that looked as if they had been dissected as you would a frog. It does not define, were those bodies human? Were those bodies non-human? But suddenly, for me, this electric jolt that came into holding that document and reading at the end of the 90s what would explain finally that our government knew that extraterrestrial biological entities from somewhere else in the cosmos was interacting with our planet for a very long time.
5 years after Roswell, the United States Air Force coined the term unidentified flying object, or UFO. In the decades since, thousands of UFOs have been reported, photographed, and videotaped all over the world.
Oh my God, dude. Perhaps one of the biggest, most revolutionary pieces of technology to change our view of UFOs and flying saucers is the video cam.
Whoa, I'm getting a series of lights right there. I got it.
You only have to look at what happened in Phoenix, Arizona in March of 1997 when these huge flying boomerangs went right across Phoenix, right through the whole valley, heading south to the Mexico border. These were all caught on cameras. Network news caught these. Local news caught these. You saw these on CNN. You saw these on Larry King.
Oh, there it is, over the left. Wow.
And yes, people called them flares. Of course they did. But the fact is, when you see something with your own eyes...
Look, dude, Pat, you got it? I see it.
Even if it's on a video camera, suddenly your perspective changes.
And that middle one is moving quick. It's only the beginning, you guys.
So now, according to recent polls, Gallup polls and Roper polls, well over 50% of Americans believe that flying saucers exist, and close to 50% believe that the government knows that flying saucers exist and that the government is hiding that fact.
In England's southwest county of Wiltshire stands Rudloe Manor. On the surface, it appears to be nothing more than a quaint English manor house. But deep beneath this structure lie an astounding 2.2 million square feet of vast caverns divided into many smaller chambers.
For years, it was home to a group called the Provost and Security Services. They're kind of like the James Bonds of the British Royal Air Force. But back in the 1990s, and certainly going back to the 1950s, the Provost and Security Services were heavily involved in UFO investigations.
In 2007, the Ministry of Defense announced that Rudloe Manor was no longer in use by the military. But if that's true, why are the grounds surrounded by chain link fences, monitored by security cameras, and even protected by guard dogs? To find the answers, in January of 2017, ancient astronaut theorist Georgios Tsoukalos traveled to the protected boundaries of Rudloe Manor.
There it is.
Joining him in his search for the truth was Nick Pope.
Wow. We're here. During your time at the MOD, what did you learn about this place or any type of UFO cases that may have happened around this area?
Well, this whole area is rich in UFO sightings. UFO sightings were investigated by staff based here at Rudloe Manor, but for years, we denied it. We told Parliament, the media, and the public that these things were of no interest, that Rudloe Manor had no involvement in this, and yet when the files were declassified, it turned out that people were right.
Right here.
Right here.
Okay.
And so this building really was at the heart of Britain's secret UFO research, and particularly the underground facilities below us. And the UFO community alleges that that's where the UK keeps its alien hardware. Crashed UFOs, all sorts of secrets and research and investigation and projects went on from this particular facility.
So then this was basically considered, or is considered, the UK's Area 51.
Absolutely right. Even rumors of alien bodies.
Alien bodies? Could the ultimate proof of government contact with extraterrestrials be hidden in the tunnels right beneath Nick and Giorgio's feet? While Rudloe Manor is completely inaccessible, another entrance to the underground facilities is found 2 miles away at the equally secretive installation known as the Corsham Computer Center, or CCC. Despite the fact that it too is not open to the public, ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos asked Nick Pope to take him to the CCC for a first-hand look at the installation.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
As a former employee of the Ministry of Defense, Nick did not feel it was appropriate for him to approach the facility himself without clearance.
I'll see you later, Nick.
Yes.
Take care. Here we are, the CCC. The lights are on. And just like Nick explained, it's got barbed wire, it is fenced down, it's impenetrable. Clearly this entrance goes underground.
Within minutes of Giorgio's arrival at the security gate, the crew is met by a military police unit.
I'm asked the million-dollar question. What are you doing down here?
Unfortunately, the situation ends with filming being halted. But why? Is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, that Rudloe Manor is not only used for secret government UFO investigations, but is housing extraterrestrial technology and even alien bodies?
Whatever's going on down there, it's big. Still to this day, thousands of people work there, and yet you can't get any real information about what they're doing. It's absolutely off limits.
The coast of Florida, January 2015. The crew of a Navy F-18 fighter jet fly into restricted airspace and encounter an airborne object directly in their flight path. They aim their forward-looking infrared camera at the object and capture it in flight.
F-18s were chasing this thing, and they couldn't catch it. The UAP is doing things that modern aerodynamic vehicles can't do.
The pilots in pursuit of the unidentified craft observed that it performed unusual maneuvers unlike any military aircraft they had ever witnessed, and all while flying at high velocities.
One of the impressive aspects of it is that it's moving against the wind, and you can hear the pilots say this.
Look at that thing, dude. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west.
It doesn't lose speed, and it rotates mechanically against the wind. This gimbal footage is one of the rare pieces of physical evidence that is corroborated directly by individuals who are out there on the East Coast documenting these things. It is highly impressive.
Now, modern day aircraft can yaw and pitch, and they can roll, but they can't simply pitch straight up and continue to move forward into the line of flight. This thing does that. It's moving extremely fast, and it's accelerating much faster than the F-18s can. So that in itself is a feat that mankind has yet to accomplish.
We tried to vet this for a long time. What's uncomfortable is that we haven't figured it out, that we don't know whose technology this is. If you can't identify someone that's far more advanced than you technologically, Houston, we have a problem.
Navy video of the incredible encounter was made public in December 2017, and the object was dubbed Gimbal due to its ability to rotate on an axis. But for ancient astronaut theorists, Just as intriguing as the way it moves is the object's shape.
The craft itself is an acorn-shaped craft. Immediately, that's reminiscent of what the ancient Indian text described as the Vimana, which were acorn-shaped craft.
In the Mahabharata and in many of the ancient Vedic texts, they speak about the so-called Vimanas. The Vimanas were flying vehicles with which to reach the celestial realm.
In the ancient Sanskrit epics of India, there are highly detailed descriptions of the Vimana, which carried the gods and other important figures through the sky, and sometimes to other planets. The acorn-shaped craft were even incorporated at the very top of many Hindu temples. And some researchers believe they also inspired similar Buddhist structures called stupa.
If we go to Indonesia and look at Borobudur, where we have 194 stupas sitting in concentric circles, each stupa, in my opinion, represents a type of flying craft, because stupa actually means celestial chariot, or a way with which to reach the celestial realm. And they are in the shape of the so-called Vimanas.
Often the Vimana were described as war machines, armed with incredible weapons.
There are tales of flying craft that could defy gravity and fly at extraordinary speeds that defy the laws of physics. These were military in usage, had powerful engines and powerful weapons. In these battles, missiles would fire that could wipe out cities. These were the earliest stories we have of flying military craft.
In the Indian text, the Vimanas are the chariots or craft of the gods. They were clearly a method of transportation that could take the gods from place to place, country to country, and even to other planets. They're sometimes described as bright clouds. Some of them are 7 stories tall.
In 1895, Sanskrit scholar Shivkar Tampada decided to fashion an aircraft based solely on information gleaned from the ancient Indian writings about the Vimana. While the story is hotly disputed, he allegedly tested the craft in front of an audience of thousands of people on a beach in Bombay.
The legend has it that he flew for like 30 seconds at 1,500 feet. The Wright brothers only went 120 feet for 12 seconds. But even more exciting is that this is technology based on a scripture written thousands of years before mankind ever had the idea of heavier than air flight. How is this possible?
According to the Hindu text, the crafts were mind-controlled, able to change direction and pitch and travel at high speeds, defying our current knowledge of aeronautical physics.
What's really cool is that these modern-day UFO videos show that these vehicles are capable of ridiculous maneuvers, that they can accelerate at the drop of a dime, or they can just stop or change direction immediately at G-forces that we could not survive. In the Vimanika Shastra, which describes what these Vimanas were capable of doing, the exact same descriptions exist. The fact that we have similar stories in ancient times illustrates to me something similar has happened.
Rachel, Nevada, September 2019. The Storm Area 51 event comes to an end without incident.
Here in Rachel, people were fearing the worst.
And so everybody's coming out here to really see what was going to happen. We're out here to make it a safe event for everybody.
I think the order has come down. We do not want mass arrests here. We do not want trouble.
You know, they had a few arrests, and other than that, they didn't have any incidents at all. Everybody behaved.
When we look at all the disinformation circling the event of storming Area 51, from the media, from the government, from social media, it made it a convoluted mess that was easily something that most people just chose to avoid.
Amid what some consider to be a concerted government effort to intimidate UFO believers, many doubt whether the Storm Area 51 movement can last, while others hope that this small beginning will blossom into something much larger.
What we might find when we look back on this is that this was the beginning of some sort of cultural movement, something that will grow year on year. We might find that it starts as just maybe a small one-off event, but evolves into something with global recognition.
You're all part of this. Become active participants, not passive observers.
And it becomes a mainstream event.
I think a lot of people, particularly due to pop culture, know of Area 51, and they accept it as gospel that there really are UFOs and aliens out there. That sort of demonstrates how the public is coming around to the idea that alien life is a reality.
For some people, the events were a good time and a fun weekend. It could turn a handful of people into the next decade's prominent researchers on UFOs and government secrecy and flying saucers and government corruption and the military-industrial state.
We are at a revolutionary moment. You've got an entire generation of young people now who have been galvanized, and they will be looking for legitimate, credible news about high strangeness on this planet in numbers that have not happened before.
For many, the gates of Area 51 are both real and symbolic. Real in the sense that the gates may hide evidence of an actual alien presence on Earth. Symbolic in that they represent the government's wider determination to cling to secrecy for as long as possible.
The U.S. government has kept so many secrets from the people that I think that's, a major driving force for people to come here. I don't know if this is a movement that we're seeing, but people want to know the truth, right? And they want to know if there's secrets being kept from us. And I think if that forms a movement, that would be awesome.
What's behind those gates is one of the last mysteries. The bottom of the ocean, Area 51, and aliens.
I think the only way to get the government to come up with answers is to keep the pressure on. Keep demanding answers. A new generation has to continue to demand answers and do what the past generation failed to achieve.
In the end, some believe that the harsh treatment once suffered by Bob Lazar is being repeated today in the government's response to the Storm Area 51 movement. They fear that under the onslaught of official intimidation, the drive for answers will slowly fade, and the secrets of Area 51 will remain hidden. But others are determined to make this modest event the beginning of a mass movement that will ultimately force open the gates of secrecy to finally reveal that both in the universe at large and right here on Earth, we are not alone.